Jake Tapper must feel pretty shitty right now, almost like when J.D. Vance killed Pope Francis. Tapper has been on a spree promoting his new book in which he is just completely trashing Joe Biden and throwing him under the bus. These types of things, these exposés on these presidents and decline, and I'm not denying that there wasn't something there with Joe Biden. These things normally take time to come out, like before you start just exposing all the president's decline and issues, but Jake Tapper was so ready and willing to jump on this and to sell this book that he could not even wait until the keys were handed over to Donald Trump to get started on the book. And now it's come out that Joe Biden has an aggressive form of prostate cancer. Not that Tapper, caused it, of course, but the fact that he went on this whole spree just railing Joe Biden, and now he has this cancer, this aggressive cancer that is metastasized in his bones, and Jake Tapper has to be like, yeah, it doesn't look quite good. The optics, yeah, you're beating up on a man who's probably had cancer for a hot minute there. And now all this is coming out, and Jake Tapper has to be feeling a little embarrassed, just like when J.D. Vance, like I said, killed Pope Francis. So if you're Jake Tapper, probably not having the best of days right now after this news broke, but maybe you'll sell a few more copies of your book. Good luck with that.
This morning, Donald Trump has announced he's investigating Bruce Springsteen, Oprah, and Beyonce because he said it is illegal and corrupt that the celebrities supported Kamala Harris. I find this pretty ironic from a guy who received over $500 million from Elon Musk. This is the same Elon Musk who, on Donald Trump's behalf, went around to the swing states and offered voters millions of dollars to vote for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is somebody whose feelings are clearly hurt because there are no real celebrities in this country who support Donald Trump. Because you see, when Donald Trump held his rally at Madison Square Garden, he had to have Kid Rock there and some B-rate racist comedian to come out and tell racial jokes. But I'm sure that was fine. I'm sure Kid Rock performing because he was willing to do it for a warm sandwich and a place to sleep, that was okay. See, Donald is frustrated because in life he has wanted nothing more than to be accepted by the celebrities and the elite. And to this day, they still don't. To this day, the other fascist dictators, be it Putin or the leaders of Qatar, they look at him like a bozo clown. So he would like to make it illegal to oppose him. That's a fascist for you. And that's what it is. Throw me a follow.
Republicans in Congress are about to force through a vote tonight, Sunday night, that will devastate millions of American families, rip hospitals out of rural communities, and potentially leave hundreds of thousands of senior citizens without a way to pay for nursing home care, leaving many of them homeless as a result. And if it sounds odd to you that they're doing this tonight, Sunday night, rather than wait to hold a vote tomorrow morning, that's because it is odd, but it's also intentional. They're doing it this way, holding votes on a weekend night long after many Americans have turned off the news and put their kids to bed because they know just how genuinely evil what they're doing is. And more than that, they know who this vote is going to hurt most. And it isn't immigrants. It isn't liberal cat ladies or spooky trans folks or latte drinking soy boys. It's rural Americans, particularly those in red states. In other words, it's Republicans' own voters. Most of the headlines about this vote have focused on the big picture, which is admittedly terrible. 1 in 5 Americans rely on Medicaid, including 40% of all kids. And under the current GOP proposal they're expected to vote on tonight, 7.6 million people would lose their health insurance in the next 10 years. But what most of the stories didn't mention is that this hit will be felt hardest in rural communities. Rural Americans are several times more likely to have jobs that don't offer health coverage and are significantly more likely to rely on Medicaid to access health care than their non-rural counterparts. Nearly half of rural children are only able to access any health care because of Medicaid and CHIP. And perhaps most devastatingly, tonight's vote risks permanently closing the doors of hundreds of rural hospitals, leaving millions of Americans without a healthcare facility anywhere near them. No emergency room, no labor and delivery ward, and no cancer treatment center. Just hours of endless road between you and life-saving care. In my home state of Oklahoma, 1 in 3 rural hospitals are at immediate risk of closure. 1 in 3. Even the rural hospitals that manage to stay open will face massive financial cuts because of tonight's vote. And hundreds of them will be forced to close entire units and stop offering certain types of care entirely, making an already dire healthcare crisis in rural America even worse. In the last decade or so, a quarter of rural hospitals have already stopped providing obstetric care, forcing pregnant women to drive hours to seek care and deliver their babies, putting the lives of both the women and their children in danger as a result. And tomorrow morning, Republican leaders will claim that they didn't make cuts to health care. They just went after fraud, waste, and abuse. They will throw around terms like work requirements and hope that that convinces their voters that nothing they've done targets them. They will be lying when they do that. We already know what happens when you tie Medicaid to cruel work requirements. Georgia tried it. They launched a program called Pathways to Coverage that only gave Medicaid to people who could jump through ridiculous bureaucratic hoops to prove that they were working or in school. It was such a disaster that only 6,500 people enrolled, 75% fewer than the state projected, and over $86 million was wasted, most of it going to consultants and administrative overhead. Not care, not people, consultants. Even the man that Republicans used as the face of the program, a full-time mechanic from rural Georgia named Luke Seaborn, lost his own coverage twice in 1 year because of how broken the system was and how impossible it was for working folks, particularly those in rural parts of the state, to navigate. This is cruelty by design because Republicans know that these work requirements don't help people. They just make it harder for poor folks, especially older rural workers, disabled people, and caregivers to keep the health care that they already qualify for. So while Republicans are giving floor speeches about saving taxpayer money, the reality is they are cutting care to rural families, closing rural hospitals, and slashing support for rural seniors, parents, and children, all while handing out tax breaks to billionaires and defense contractors. This budget reconciliation isn't just bad policy. It is a targeted assault on the working poor, especially the working poor in the rural South and Midwest. If Republicans get their way tonight, the only thing left in some small towns will be a shuttered hospital and a Dollar General. So if you're watching this and you care about your community, whether you're in rural Kentucky, upstate New York, or western Oklahoma, now is the time to speak up. Their offices may be closed right now, but you can still leave a voicemail. Call your member of Congress right now. Leave a message demanding they reject these cuts and get loud on social media immediately. Share this video. I've posted it on every single platform imaginable, which you can find in my bio, and do all of the things like, comment, everything, because healthcare is a human right, no matter your zip code.
Hi folks, so Donald Trump has recently made a speech just a couple of days ago where he touted the success of his administration pertaining to the auto sector. He's actually come out and said that there are currently 11 car manufacturers that are in the process of building car factories in the United States, and it's going to bring in tens of thousands of jobs and billions of dollars worth of investment. And he said he's getting more offers from other car companies to bring the industry to the United States. I want to say there is absolute zero evidence of any of these car factories taking place. There is no building, there is no renovation, there's just no evidence for it. There's been no PR or public relations statements from the vast, from these factories, these owners. So we're going to have to just say that this is nonsense again. He's spending almost his entire presidency lying to the American people and to the world. My name is Nick. source of this, CNN and also Truth Social. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. I'd love you guys to give me a follow.
Hey, what's up, America? It's becoming too difficult to live here in the United States. Yeah, just overall, it's too difficult to live here in America. Rent and housing prices are not coming down in the United States. Neither is food or gas prices. Those are basically stagnant. Insurance costs are through the roof. Car prices are through the roof, both new and used. But your paycheck isn't going up. Taxes are still high as fuck. No one seems to care. And you're stuck at your job you're doing. And when you look for new jobs, you find out that most of them are ghost jobs. Or they're simply not hiring you because you don't fall into a diversity category. Frankly speaking, the people that are buying homes right now, I have no idea how you have the money to do that. It's been me, my wife, and 2 kids, and we've been struggling just to make ends meet. And then somehow you have a wife and 2 kids, yet you're buying $1 million home. I don't seem to understand. I've worked just as hard as you have. I've done exactly what you did. But because I lived in the Midwest, I don't have shit. 74% of people in America are living paycheck to paycheck. 70% of people have no money in their savings account whatsoever. Half the people with 401ks have taken hardship loans out so they can buy food. Most of your credit cards are maxed out because you had to buy food for your family. If you are buying a home or you're buying a car right now, more than likely you're upside down on your loans. And we could go on and on about us working 10 and 12-hour days to make ends meet. But the bottom line is, if you haven't noticed, it's becoming unsustainable to live here in the United States, regardless of who's in charge. Things got really bad under Joe Biden, and they're not really improving under Donald Trump except for DEI in certain aspects. And we keep just plowing forward because otherwise we'll starve to death and become homeless. But that's a poor incentive for life. Then you have Republicans coming out saying, we know all this is a problem. Let's cut food stamps. Let's garnish your wages for student loans. But let's raise the debt ceiling by $4 trillion, says Republicans. So basically, we're going to charge more, we're going to cut you off from help, and then we're going to make more debt. But don't look for Democrats to help you. They're not going to do anything. And so we've talked about this shit over and over till I could puke coat hangers. But at some point, returning to the status quo isn't going to work. People have suffered too much. They don't have anything except for the super rich. It's not socialism to demand that the poor have something for survival, like food, liquids, and shelter. Now, most of us here in America probably would have had that, but you gave all of our money to illegal aliens. You have to stop that. They're not citizens. I don't care what your fucking mashed potato brains thinks. American citizens first with American money, then you can help everybody else out. Not the other way around, you pieces of shit. We're all struggling, but the Democrats' answer is to give it all to illegal aliens, and the Republican answer is to fuck the poor. We don't have anybody representing us, you pieces of shit.
Donald Trump is a horrible president. Donald Trump is a horrible president, a horrible person, and an incredible failure. And because of that, among other things, I've often said that at some point Donald Trump will become a pariah, that nobody will be able to tolerate him, nobody will stand behind him. We're not quite at that point in this country as yet, because there still is a faction, a small faction, but a faction nonetheless, that still think he's their Lord and Savior. I guess we need more time. But internationally speaking, Donald Trump is a pariah. There is nobody around the world that can stand this motherfucker. Now, people will say, what about Vladimir Putin? Well, what about Vladimir Putin? Donald Trump's just a dancing monkey to Vladimir Putin. He doesn't like Donald Trump. He doesn't respect Donald Trump. He's using Donald Trump, and even Republicans are starting to say that. Well, Donald Trump went to Pope Francis's funeral, and he's standing there in the basilica near President Zelensky. They were going to go off and talk, like we mentioned before. Well, President Macron from France walks up. Now, keep in mind, Donald Trump and Macron have met many times. In France, at the White House, they know each other.
Hello, everyone. So as we know, our president, Donald J. Trump, is a fucking moron. But lately, he seemed even more demented than normal, which is very scary. And a lot of people are bringing up how just unhinged and not all there and not well he seems. And before any of you fucking morons jump in the comments talking about Joe Biden, we got rid of him when he seemed too senile. And he doesn't even scratch the surface on the thing I'm about to read you that Trump said. So this is the actual transcript from a roundtable he had talking about the Ukraine, talking about the war. When Trump talks, he tends to talk in a way where his ramblings almost make sense if you're not paying attention. But when you read it out, when someone else reads out the transcript, it sounds fucking insane. Like you'd put your grandpa in a home if he started talking like this. I'm going to read it to you. Ready? Here we go. When you look at what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, the drone is killing tremendous numbers of people. You hide behind a tree and the drone comes down. It circles you with fire. You don't have a chance. The tree comes down also, by the way. It's so intense. I mean, you see these trees being knocked down like they're being sawed down by a top-of-the-line timberman. Like Sean Duffy. Do you know that Sean Duffy, the head of transportation department, who's working right now on the airports and getting a system because Biden didn't do a thing for years? Pete Buttigieg was the head, and he goes bicycling into work. He takes a bicycle to work. Can you believe? He's running the biggest air system in the world, and he takes a bicycle to work. One end. And they say he's going to run for president. I don't see it. Who knows, right? But I don't see it. But when you look at what they've done, it's so horrible what they've done. And the work they wasted billions of dollars trying to hook up air systems to copper. And they tried to hook up copper to glass, and glass didn't work with the copper. They had 30,000 different contractors doing 30,000 jobs. And when they put it all together, they spent billions of dollars. It didn't even come close to working. And we're going to be giving out brand new system. It's very important. We'll have the best system. And we think we know who that system is. But we have a lot of bidding. But we want one check. We want a unified system. We don't want to have 5,000 contractors all in different places. Some digging ditches and some not doing ditches because they want to go by satellite. Satellite seemed to be the way to go. But so we're going to be giving that out pretty soon. But what people don't know about Sean, because I mentioned lumberjacks, that Sean, you probably didn't know this. I'm not talking about this Sean. This Sean, no, not this. This is different Sean. Sean Duffy, the head of transportation. But he's doing great, Sean, though, I have to tell you. But Sean Duffy was the world champion for 5 years, climbing trees and down, up and down, world champion. So that's what you call a serious lumberjack. And he's doing a fantastic job, too. Really respected guy, terrific guy. And I mentioned the champion because when somebody is a champion, he's the world champion for a long time. He came down. When you come down those streets, coming down at a rapid, he said that started getting, Jesus Christ. He said that started getting your back. You will often break your back. You miss a shot and you're coming down a lot faster than a human body was meant to come down. But he's doing a fantastic job at transportation. The President of the United States, ladies and gentlemen. The motherfucker that 70 million people in this country fucking voted for. That guy. I don't want to hear a goddamn pissing thing ever again about Joe Biden and his fucking stutter. That reads so much like, not so much a dementia patient, but it definitely could be one. But it reads so much like just your old grandpa who can't focus on a single thing for a second, and he's talking and he's going off in all these different directions, and he says one thing and he gets stuck on that, and then he starts talking about that and starts rambling about that. That started about the Ukraine. There was a conversation about the Ukraine. He's talking about Sean Duffy and climbing trees. What the fuck? This is the guy who has our nuclear codes? This is the guy we have put in charge of running the country. This is the guy we have trust to make deals with people like Qatar and Saudi Arabia. This is the guy we trust to not bow down and fucking just give Elon Musk whatever he wants and these fucking billionaires whatever he wants. This is the guy we're trusting with this. This is the guy we're letting decide who gets to come into this country and who gets to get kicked out of this country. Are you fucking kidding me? Fucking dumbass Republicans say all the time, if you don't love this country, leave. Well, if this is what we have, the president's supposed to be the best of us. If this is what the best of us is, if this is even the top 50% of the best of us, if this is even the top 20% of the best we have in this country, then yeah, I don't want to be a part of it. That's fucking insane.
So let's talk about what the Republican Party is doing in the cover of night on Sunday night specifically. Mike Johnson here spent all Sunday night meeting with hardliners, financial hawks, who didn't want to vote for this big, beautiful bill. And you'll never believe the actual concessions that he had to give up just to secure their potential vote. I just want to be very, very clear on this. For anyone watching this in MAGA, you're going to be affected. For those people that are going to start trying to blame Democrats, please, please, please understand that this meeting actually occurred with Republican leaders, with White House officials, and with 4 GOP lawmakers. No Democrats. But what they had to do in order to secure potential votes from these hardliners were to actually accelerate the timeline for strict Medicaid work requirements for millions of low-income, able-bodied Americans. And just so you guys know, they also had to remove waivers for states and limit any future funding to state programs. So that means that even if your state was a state that would possibly cover your Medicaid, they're not going to get any funds. Now, another thing that I want to make sure you guys know is those people that are in the red states, the MAGA supporters that Donald Trump so much cares about, they're the ones that are really going to be affected. Yes, they rely on this healthcare plan and they're going to lose it. And not only they're going to lose it because they're talking about they moved the timeline up from 2029 to 2027, but it could be as soon as 2026. Mike Johnson has a very big meeting on Monday where he's going to be meeting with the Main Street Caucus, the people who are worried because this big, beautiful bill also attacks Medicaid, SNAP benefits, and also pensions. And guys, this Republican Party, Donald Trump, they have, not my words, caused chaos ripping through the bond markets, Moody downgrading the U.S. credit rating, and Walmart announcing it would raise prices amid Trump's latest tariff regime. Listen, they are destroying the economy. I want to make sure that you guys know that the focus of this bill is going to be juicing the military and also border security, where they're going to give hundreds of billions of dollars to both of those efforts, while also increasing the national debt to $36 trillion. Yes, they're adding to the national debt. So all of those Trump supporters, just remember, you voted for this. Like you tell us all the time, I know what I voted for. Well, I hope you know that you voted to cut people's Medicaid, to hurt people that really needed it, to cut SNAP benefits, to actually be harmful to your fellow Americans. You suck. Anyway, I love you guys. And as always, peace.
Late last night, while you were asleep, House Republicans in the Budget Committee moved forward a bill that could potentially lead to 13.7 million Americans losing healthcare coverage by the end of 2026. Remember this big, beautiful bill that Donald Trump was talking about, his agenda for his first 100 days? Well, the House Budget Committee, after failing to vote it out of committee earlier last week, late last night voted to advance it to the next stage. This Budget Committee bill would cut Medicaid, cut SNAP, and harm millions of Americans. The vote was 17-16 to advance it. 4 Republicans didn't vote, instead voting present. These 4 Republicans are further to the right. They wanted to see faster and more cuts to programs like Medicaid. We'll see what happens next. What we don't know right now is what deals were cut, other than the fact that House leadership in the Republican side have allegedly agreed to push new Medicaid work requirements up to take effect at the end of 2026 versus later. Like I said, folks, if this bill passes, 13.7 million Americans could potentially lose healthcare coverage. It is a significant piece of legislation. Now, here's what's next. It will now go to the Rules Committee in the House of Representatives, who is expected to take it up at 1 a.m. on Wednesday. For some reason, they want to do this in the night when everyone is asleep, not when everyone is awake and watching. At 1 a.m., the Rules Committee, or Thursday morning, will consider it. And then afterwards, if that passes, it'll then go to the full House of Representatives for a vote. It's unclear. It's probably not right now. House Republicans don't have the votes to pass this, so we'll see what happens there. If it passes the House, it'll then go to the Senate, which will have major changes to this legislation, and then it'll go to the president's desk if it passes. But there are a lot of steps before it ever gets there. And Mike Johnson has said that he will keep the House in session over Memorial Day to pass this bill, but we don't even know if he has the votes. Now, folks, as an aside, If you want to support my work, a lot of folks have been asking the easiest way to do so. Click the button below, become a paid subscriber to my Substack today, or consider sending a one-time donation to my Venmo to Aaron, Aaron-Parnas, Parnas, to support my work. Unlike other mainstream media sources, I'm not going to use today or really any day to bash Joe Biden, to question his mental acuity on the 2024 campaign trail. I'm not going to write a book about it. And the reason why is because we live in a time where Joe Biden isn't president, folks. Donald Trump is president. If these media figures like Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson truly thought that Joe Biden was unfit to serve, then they should have said something back in 2024, not saved what they had to then publish a book over a year later when the country, as many perceive it, is literally under assault right now in a number of ways. Speaking of President Biden's cancer diagnosis was announced yesterday, an aggressive form of prostate cancer. This morning, President Biden and his wife Jill posted their first personal response following the diagnosis, saying, "Cancer touches us all. Like so many of you, Jill and I have learned that we are strongest in the broken places. Thank you for lifting us up with love and support." Donald Trump Jr., meanwhile, took to Twitter to attack Joe Biden, saying, "What I want to know is, how did Dr. Joe Biden miss stage 5 metastatic cancer, or is this yet another cover-up?" Two issues there. Number one, there's no evidence that there's stage 5 cancer here. But number two, Dr. Biden is not a medical doctor, and Donald Trump Jr. knows that. Ed Martin, the current pardon attorney at the Department of Justice, following the diagnosis, announced that he's opening an investigation into President Biden's pardons, saying, quote, "The integrity of the American pardon system means we need to look into these pardons and figure out exactly who was involved and what happened. We'll get to the bottom of it. You can count on that." Now, meanwhile, Donald Trump took to Truth Social in a late night rant at around 2 a.m. and demanded the investigation of celebrities, including Beyonce, Bono, Oprah, and Bruce Springsteen for performing at Kamala Harris rallies. He said that he is going to be directing a massive investigation into these celebrities over alleged campaign finance violations, in his opinion. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has clarified that the United States will be issuing waivers to its sanctions on Syria, but is not fully lifting them at this time, despite Donald Trump's remarks to the contrary. We do have some news on the Ukraine front. Donald Trump today is scheduled to speak with both Russian President Volodymyr Zelensky, along with Russian President Vladimir Putin, along with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. They were both discussed. Donald Trump has long said that any resolution to the war cannot happen until he meets Putin face to face. So today may be the beginning of that meeting. We'll see what happens. And finally, an Iranian official warned that nuclear talks with the United States will collapse if Washington insists Iran stop enriching uranium. That's all the news right now. There'll be a lot more news throughout the day, so stay tuned. If you want to support my work, click the button below, become a paid subscriber today, or consider sending a one-time donation via Venmo to Aaron-Parnas, and I'll see you soon.